the strengths that they've shown now in AI and one of the things. And I remember one of the officials at the embassy told me that we know that you really mean into these things, but there's a framework on how you can reach and attract a lot of investment. And they say it's always have to follow 3 steps of the framework. 1, you have to build trade first. If country to country, they have to start to trade. And then second level is cultural exchange. Exchange is helping us to understand each other. Then the third level is where investment can happen naturally. Our country and Nordic country, we have moved through all those 3 levels. We can start to talk about investment now, and that's why we believe and we know an event like this is very important for our country. The region of Nordic, of which also is very close to my heart, that's where I did my PhD on, is ripe. They have technology and they have a lot of opportunity that we can work together as Tanzania and to build both our economy in the right direction that we want. Going to Vision 2050. Vision 2050 is articulated 5 drivers of our mission to reach the economy of $1 trillion by 2050 or earlier than that. And one of those drivers is digital transformation. And that's where I want to concentrate on in that my remarks that I'm giving right now. When we look at digital transformation in our country, basically we look at 5 pillars because digital transformation might mean many things in different countries based on maturity of how digital economy of a country have grown. But in our country, we do look at 5 pillars, and the pillars are digital skills, that's pillar number 1. Pillar number 2, digital security and trust. Pillar number 3, digital telecommunication services. Pillar number 4 is digital transformation. And pillar number 5 is digital research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. This is how we see digital transformation as a driver that is going to drive every economic sector for our country so that we can reach the goal that we have put ourselves of 1 trillion economy by 2050 or earlier than that or not. And I'll explain briefly, Honorable Guest of Honor, on each of those pillars. The first pillar is the one that is going to onboard all who are living in Tanzania. We're not saying that all Tanzania, anyone who is living in Tanzania, to participate in digital economy. For them to be able to participate, we need to provide basic digital skills to everyone, intermediate digital skills to technicians and things like that, and advanced skills for researchers and things of that sort. Pillar number 2 talks about cybersecurity, which is very keen. All these platforms that we've been using, we want them to be very secure. And most important of all is trust. Whenever we embark on digital transformation of where we are building our digital economy, trust is of most importance because when people do not trust the systems, they'll never use it. So in trust, there are 3 things we're normally looking at. 1, protection of personal data, of where we have an institution in Tanzania dealing with that. 2, privacy, which is very important. Human beings, they need their privacy to be protected. And also consumer protection. So all these 3 things, they build trust, and trust is the one that will enable people to use systems that they have. Digital telecommunication services, we ensure that each and everyone is able to get reliable and speed connection to the internet because digital economy need connectivity of high speed. And our government have done a lot. Most of the towers that now in mobile communication, they are 4G and 5G, which is very important for our country. Digital economy, we have a specific strategy that has been launched by Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan in year 2024. It's a strategy that goes for 10 years. It's going to finish in 2034. It's called Digital Economy Strategic Framework. It's a framework because we want sectors of economy to be able to adapt it in the economy in the best way that fits in a specific need. And the last pillar is for us to have a competitive economy, we have to be able to produce our own data. So digital research is very important, and we need to innovate so that we can be able to ensure that the competitiveness is still continuing. But most of all, we need entrepreneurs. We need entrepreneurs who are going to link up with those investors or entrepreneurs from Nordic in our country, because those are a very important thing. Now, the journey of our country started in 2003. That's where government decided to, orient itself and start to build the economy so that it will take advantage of the wave of changes that was happening at that time globally. Before 2003, we all understand for us to communicate, we needed telecommunication technology. But in 90s, especially end of 90s, technology convergence, and that convergence brought IT. So the government first IT policy was launched in 2003, and that was a major orientation of the government. And that policy was talking about infrastructure. So I'll explain a bit what was the direction of the government, because we were still in that journey. Step number one is to build digital infrastructure in the country, because we never had IT before 2003. And if you read that policy, it talks about basically two things. It talks about building the physical infrastructure, the backbone network, connecting the schools, offices, and things of that sort. And also, it talks about creating institutions. We have a number of institutions in our ecosystem. We have a regulator, we have the fund, which is the Universal Access Fund. We have the IT Commission. We have other institutions which were created by that policy of 2003. But 2016, we developed another policy, and that policy was talking about systems. So in the digital infrastructure stage, two things are supposed to happen. One, we build physical infrastructure, and two, we ensure that we build systems. But now we are in step number two. Step number two is about digital economy, guest of honor. And the digital economy is that strategic framework that we have created for 10 years. It's going to end in 2034. It talks about now to onboard everyone to the economy and start to gain the benefit of all the investment which was done in the digital infrastructure. But the last stage which we are looking at is to have digital society. And digital society is a society that will be consuming all these applications that are created, all the innovations, seamlessly without one going to university or things like that. The good example of digital society in a normal way is like the way we are using electricity. Someone is enjoying electricity without studying electrical engineer or things like that. So we need to have digital society where people start to benefit now from all these technologies that we are talking about. So that is a journey that we have as a country. Our Ministry of Communication and IT is geared toward that. The vision has shown us clearly that digital transformation is needed very well. We are working with the private sector, especially the startups, because we know we are able to move much faster if we work with the private sector, as it has been articulated in DILA 2050. Honorable guest of honor, for this brief review, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Well, I think the good Dr. Mwasaga deserves another round of applause. Thank you for the deep dive and also the clarifications, as well as highlighting the role of digital infrastructure and policy coordination. It's very well articulated. Thank you very much. I think it's going to be quite instrumental to our delegates to actually understand it as you've set it out. Honorable guest of honor, allow me to continue. Industrial growth requires structured investment environments. And it's my great pleasure now to invite a representative from the Tanzania Investment and Special Economic Zone Authority to share their institutional remarks, and they are represented by Anna Limo, the Director of Special Economic Zones from TISEZA. Karibu, it's my great pleasure to welcome you onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, your hands. Karibu.
Habari ya asubuhi. Honorable Deputy Minister of State, President Office, Planning and Investment, Dr. Pius Chaya, representative from leaders from the government and private sector, Director General for ICT Commission, Dr. Nkunde Mwasaga, Managing Director of I4D, Elias Patrick, members of diplomatic missions, if I are here, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. It's my honor to present the institutional remarks from TISEZA on behalf of my General Director. On behalf of Tanzania Investment and Special Economic Authority, I'm honored to participate to this summit. I really extend sincerely appreciation to fellow organizers, partners, Innovation for the Development, Africa Nordic Organization, and the ICT Commission for convening this important platform, and to all partners and stakeholders who have contributed to make this summit possible. Honorable guests of honor, TISEZA is mandated to promote, facilitate, and coordinate investment in Tanzania, as well as to develop and manage a special economic zone and export processing zone. In line with Tanzania Development Vision 2050 and our National Industrialization and Value Addition Agenda, we are committed to position Tanzania as a competitive and predictable investment destination for high impact, innovation-driven, and export-oriented investment. This summit is timely. It brings together innovators, investors, and policymakers at a moment when East Africa, the strong participation of innovators and enterprise from East Africa, alongside partners from Nordic country, demonstrates the growing appetite for cross-regional partnership that combine Nordic technological excellence with East African market opportunity and growth potential. Honorable guest of honor, TISEZA places particular emphasis on facilitating investment in priority sectors aligned with our national development objectives, including agriculture and agro-processing, manufacturing, renewable energy, digital and ICT, health and pharmaceuticals, mineral value addition, logistic and export-oriented industries. Through our special economic zone and the industrial park, we offer dedicated infrastructure, service the land, streamline regulatory processes, and competitive incentives, both fiscal and non-fiscal incentives, to support investors seeking to establish manufacturing and regional export platform in Tanzania. We encourage companies, specifically also from Nordic and innovation-driven enterprises, to explore concrete partnership in Tanzania through joint venture, technology transfer, development programs, and regional value chain integration. Beyond incentives and infrastructure, TISEZA provides end-to-end investors facilitation services, including project identification, site allocation, regulatory guidance through our one-stop facilitation center, coordination with relevant governmental institutions, and aftercare support services. To the innovators participating in this summit, we recognize your ambition for market access, partnership, investment readiness, finance, mentorship, and skills development. TISEZA stands ready to work with partners to connect promising innovators with industrial platforms, special economic zone, and investors who can support scaling, commercializing of your solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, our message is clear. Tanzania is ready for business, open for partnership, and open for innovation. We invite the private sector, financial institutions, and the technological providers to engage with us in building bankable projects that deliver commercial returns while advancing sustainable development, job creation, and inclusive growth. In concluding this remark, I reaffirm TISEZA's commitment to work closely with our regional partners, Nordic business communities, development partners, and innovation ecosystems to translate the outcome of this summit into tangible investment, partnership, and long-term collaboration. We look forward to welcoming you to Tanzania and to support your investment journey. Thank you so much. Asanteni kwa kunisikiliza.
Thank you very much, Ms. Limo. Once again, your hands, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for outlining the strategic investment pathways available through SEZ. This says frame.
And the other leaders from the government authorities, members of the diplomat corps. We have representatives from Nordic regions, private sector leaders, development partners, the media, ladies and gentlemen. Kazi na utu. Kazi na utu. It is my great honor to join for convening this timely and strategic together the government, private investors, financial institutions, innovators, and international partners is not only essential, but also key to translate policy into investment, but also dialogue into action. This summit thus reflects an important reality that sustainable growth requires alignment between policy and capital, between innovation and the industry, and innovation. It strengthens governance, improves the service delivery, and support enterprises' growth across key sectors, including agriculture, as they have said, already been endorsed. But to implement the Vision 2050, also as the government, we have developed the 5-year development plan 4, which will go for 5 years, 2026 up to developing them Kumbi 2, that will be recently endorsed by the government. Through ongoing reform to streamline business registration, licensing and investment facilitation processes, we are reducing bureaucratic barriers and fostering an ecosystem that encourages entrepreneurship, research, but also private sector-led innovation. These efforts demonstrate our commitment to building a resilient technology-enabled economy. Dear ladies and gentlemen, Tanzania economic transformation does not take place in isolation. Regional integration remains a central pillar of our development strategy, and it strengthens our competitiveness and expands the opportunities for growth. Through the East African community and the African Continental Free Trade Area, but also bilateral and multilateral agreement that the government we have entered, we are expanding market access, strengthening cross-border value chain, and positioning our industries to compete beyond national borders. Regional integration enhances market scale, improves the production efficiency, increases investment attractiveness, but also promotes trade diversification. So it enables Tanzania not only to serve its domestic market, but also to operate as a strategic gateway to a broader regional and continental economy. Equally important, our partnership beyond the continent is key. Engagement with the Nordic region presents valuable opportunities for collaboration in sustainable industrial development, digital innovation, climate-smart technologies, and a structured investment partnership. Nordic countries possess long-standing strength in governance, systems, green technologies, digital infrastructure, and a responsible investment framework. By deepening collaboration between East Africa and the Nordic regions, we create a meaningful pathways for knowledge exchange, technology transfer, and a long-term capital alignment. Strategic partnership of this nature advance not only economic growth, but also resilience, sustainability, and long-term competitiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, as we deliberate today, let us remain focused on one central objective: translating dialogue into measurable outcome. Conferences alone do not transform economies. Execution does. Thus, investment mobilization requires, for that case, bank-up projects, institutional coordination, policy consistency, private sector confidence, and disciplined implementation. I therefore encourage all of you as key participants, in particular government institutions, financial partners, private investors, innovators, international organizations, and the youth in particular, to use this platform strategically to engage in practical discussions, identify concrete partnership, structure viable investment pathway, and build long-term collaboration that extend beyond this summit. Tanzania stands ready to work with the partner who share our commitment to sustainable industrial growth, digital transformation and the competitiveness, and the regional integration. With these very few remarks, it is now my honor to officially declare that the East Africa Nordic Innovation Trade Investment Summit 2026 is now open. I wish you fruitful deliberations and a successful engagement. Asanteni sana. Kazi na utu. Kazi na utu. Asanteni sana.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Dr. Pius Stephen Chaya, Deputy Minister of State, President's Office, Planning and Investment. Thank you very much, sir. We have listened to your speech. We thank you for your powerful and strategic remarks and also your offer of encouragement and also opening officially this summit, this premier summit. May I please request, depending on your good time, to do a photo session with you and some of the key participants. And may I please also call for you to perhaps remain a bit if you can. If you can't, you've opened it for us. We appreciate it very much. And so may I call you forward, please, towards the middle of the stage. Madam Chair, if you don't mind, please joining. And Elias, let's begin with the three of you, and then I'll continue growing the picture. I'll call on our partners next thereafter. So if you would all stand just in front of the two electrical outlets and on top of the stage. Our photographer, are you ready? Hope our photographer is not out drinking coffee. Is he ready? Yes, he is. He was just changing the battery. All right, very well. And so from our friends at Stanbic, if you would join the picture to the side, and all our partners, please, from Pula, my IDA, GT, CNS, Agri-Export Hub. And Mwani, for the great coffee outside, to Cesar, and Dr. Musaga, please. Yeah, should I ask well, the only tall one is my good friend, Doctor here. But the tall ones, could you probably step onto the stage? Just take a step up. If I could have maybe, I think so you can fit at the end. Yeah, I think you could fit at the end. Our moderators for the sessions, can I have a special picture with you? Thank you very much to our partners. May I take you back to your seats? Our moderators, specifically the moderators. Malila, please come through, and the three others. And then I'm going to call the panelists, panel 1, 2, and 3. All right, thank you, the moderators. Panelists, let's see how many you are here. So we'll do panel 1, 2, 3, all of you together. And if it's a big group, I'll ask some of us to step up onto the stage and just behind the guest of honor. I think this is a big group, so some of us, can we get up onto the stage? And the trick is to stand between shoulders. To stand between shoulders, yes. Okay, great to see that all the panelists are turned up. The organizing team. All right, thanks, guys. See you shortly on stage. The organizing team. I4D. Karibuni and congratulations for helping out Elias reaching this milestone. We've heard at the outset from Tiseza, and as it progresses into the program, Maida and the others, all the ones who will do the strategic presentations, please come through for specific as presenters. Does anybody want to take a picture with me and the guest of honor? Just so that you can prove that you were here. Please, could I ask you to rise and come forward? Feel free. Let's have a big picture with the guest of honor. All our participants, some of our participants, all of us, as many as we can. Let's load up the stage. Yeah, I can see a lot of you wish to, especially the young people, right? Okay, we'll do the old people like me, and then let's begin with the young people. Okay? All right, gentlemen, please allow the ladies to sort of, all right. How's my left-hand side of the stage looking? Can we add some people over there? So in my 27 years of doing this, being on stage, doing MC work, I used to meet a lot of old people and welcome old government people to speech, like over 70 years, 60 years and plus. These days, I invite very young officials. Yeah.
What is the means? Because, what is the means? Because he's not a CPA, he's not a because he's not a CPA, he's not a financial guru. By leveraging AI, one day he constructed his super prompt. With this prompt, he could pick one, just let's say company name, and then could take time period, sector, and then tell the AI, please do the analysis. Go out for a coffee. After 5 minutes, we'll get on a report, an investment thesis. After 5 minutes, I go through it. It's just a long report, too busy. Then I change it to mini podcasts. Then I listen. After doing that, I go and buy my very first stock with confidence. Now, this is thrilling. It's amazing. Oh, exciting. So he started, let me share with my family and friends back home, what I did. All of a sudden, my friends, they were like, now, please do the analysis for stock, let's say CRB. And that wasn't long ago. It was just last year. What if this super prompt, could be liberated, could be transformed, could be packaged, and shared to not just his family and friends, but to every Tanzanian? What if? So because I did that, and I did that. I picked my very first stock, yeah, through AI, by leveraging AI. And I got that confidence. Say, why not share? Right? Now, an innovative product was born. That was 7 months ago. And this product is my IDA. We understand that the financial matters are personal. Yeah. So my IDA is an acronym, AI-driven analyst. You have your own personal assistant. But you could, if you want to, it's a word play. You could do my AIDA. It aids, it analyzes, it do the research, it guides you for you to understand investment, this complex data. That's jargon. It has been caped. But now, through my IDA, you get the confidence to participate in the stock market. Picture this. You're in the platform, you have a personal assistant. That assistant, it's IDA. Yeah? You go around, you get to track all your portfolio. Real-time data go up and down your portfolio. You see, it's just there. You go back, you see market data, companies data. These are very complex. These are gatekeeping people to participate in the stock market or capital markets at large. You see them visually presented, easy to see. Just one glance and you see this has gone up, this has gone down. That will give you instantly confidence to participate. So my IDA adopts a freemium model, business model. This is not new. ChatGPT is doing, Gemini is doing, and so many software as a service is doing. Okay? So this, but if we get investors, right, and they believe in the vision that we have of targeting 20 million Tanzanians, right, we could lower that subscription tiers. It is available for free forever, because there are a couple of pages where we believe that you get the value, even if you're free. But we have some subscriptions which we pay because we get to keep the lights on, right? So unlike other available solutions in the market, we provide a personalized recommendations. Your IDA, my IDA, that knows your investment journey. And it doesn't matter whether you're beginner, you're casual, you're trader. It caters for all. It is simple to get to. So what we have seen for the past 2 months with our innovation, you can trade, you can invest in the capital markets with confidence. Thank you for having the man from the southernmost part of Sweden. Thank you.
Sir, please give your voice a holiday. Yeah? You might lose it altogether and you might miss out on all the other pitches that are definitely coming up. I think this is one guy everybody wants to talk to, right? Let's put our hands together to Mr. Sharima, and congratulations. I loved the word sharing. Yeah? There's quite an impact in that as well. Karibu sana, and congratulations. All right, so should we proceed, ladies and gentlemen? It's my great pleasure to introduce our moderator, Halila Mbowe. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one lady that I love being on stage with. And you will enjoy her moderation skills as well. So please put your hands together and she will present her panel for transformation and investment readiness. Karibu sana, Halila. Happy to present the stage for you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Habari za asubuhi. The great thing about having a mic is I can ask you to do that again because that was a very weak greeting. In the name of the Lord. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? I'm very serious about development and about celebrating platforms like this. So hatusalimiani kinyonge. Yes. Once again, habari za asubuhi mabibi na mabwana, mnaendeleaje? Asante sana. That's more like it. As introduced, my name is Halila Mbowe. It is with great pleasure as the CEO of Unleashed Africa Social Enterprises, where we work at the intersection of digital innovation, entrepreneurship development, ecosystem strengthening across emerging sectors here in Tanzania and beyond, that I get to moderate the first panel of the day. In my work, kwenye kazi ambazo tunafanya, I have seen firsthand how digital systems, as I'm sure many of us have, digital systems are not just tools, but they are economic multipliers. And that's why this first panel for the day is critical. Ladies and gentlemen, as we've heard from Dr. Mwasaga, as well as our guest of honor, Vision 2050, about to be actioned coming July, our vision is very clear. Digital transformation is not about peripheral growth. It is foundational. It is a growth driver. So tunavozungumza, we are not just speaking stats. We're not just speaking vague concepts, but we are talking about deep sentiment. Because now, according to IFC, the international, the IFC, as well as Google Africa Economy Report, Africa's internet, not digital, internet economy alone is projected to reach over $700 billion by 2050, representing roughly 8% of GDP in some markets. But that outcome, ladies and gentlemen, as much as we can celebrate the potential of money and the potential of economic growth, that outcome depends directly on digital infrastructure. We cannot say that enough. Government alignment, we cannot advocate for that enough, and investment readiness. So ladies and gentlemen, before I call my panel to the stage, here is the real question, and this is a question that I am going to throw to each one of us in the room. How do we ensure that digital transformation translates into structural investment, industrial competitiveness, and regional integration? The conversation we're about to have, residents, investor readiness, ecosystem readiness as a whole, because as we've heard time and time again, we cannot do this alone. And many times, I had the privilege of asking a few people after I spoke on a certain stage. I remember growing up, my mother, every time I asked that question, she used to say, you have a dictionary. Nowadays, you have Google. Look for an ecosystem. Every single person, every single Tanzanian is part of the ecosystem that we are talking about. So this is not a they conversation. So as you're sitting there in your seat, I would like to introduce you to my first panelists of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, give the person sitting and your right a round of applause because they are my first panelists. Panelists. This is about how Tanzania positions itself as a platform, not regional digital economy. So ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to the first panel, digital as a foundation for investment mobilization, industrial regional. Mabibi na mabwana, let's begin and let's build. And I encourage the organizing team to fashion me with a few mics hapa mbele so that we don't share microphones, number mics for the panelists. Have an AI that can project our voices directly, yet it's coming. Ladies and Makofi Media team wamefanya kazi nzuri. Very much. Introduce my panelists this morning. The second panelist, of course, like I said, you are the first. Ladies and gentlemen, back to the stage, Director General ICT Commission, Dr. Nkundwe Mwasaga. He is leading Tanzania's, our national efforts to drive digital transformation. And normally I like to refer to him as my digital encyclopedia when it comes to digital transformation in Tanzania. Ladies and gentlemen, also to the stage, this is the ecosystem brother. Ladies, mabibi na mabwana, it gives me great pleasure and honor as well as privilege to call up to the stage the founder and CEO of Sahara Ventures. Mabibi na mabwana, makofi yaliyoshiba ya kibabe kabisa, Mr. Jumanne Mtambalike, CEO Sahara Ventures Limited. Also to the stage, she is a seasoned innovation and ecosystem development leader with expertise in entrepreneurship support, business incubation, and SME growth within Tanzania's private sector. Ladies and gentlemen, the striking leader herself, head of the Stanbic Business Incubator at Stanbic Bank Tanzania, makofi kwake Bi Kai Molel. Ladies and gentlemen, also to the stage, IT Regional Director, Grant Thornton Advisory East Africa Limited. A hand of applause to Mr. Satyajit Tirumela. Karibu sana, makofi kwake mabibi na mabwana. Karibu sana. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, once more a hand of applause to our guest of honor who has decided to come and take part of this panel. Asante sana mgeni rasmi. It is not often that we find great interest in this conversation, and we believe that you're earnestly going to participate. Ladies and gentlemen, yes. Mabibi na mabwana, tunaanza moja kwa moja, and I'm going to be shifting language here and there because I do believe it's pertinent to all the people who are joining us online. Mr. Elias, I have seen that we have about 3,700 people following the conversation. Ninawa insist chukueni hiyo link, rusheni kwa watu wengine nao wahusike na haya mazungumzo, because we are all part of this ecosystem. Dr. Kumradhi Mwasaga, naanza moja kwa moja na wewe, because I'd like to start with really framing the digital foundations of what we're building, and that is within government. You mentioned in your conversation, in your presentation earlier, that when you are speaking with investors, when you're speaking with embassies, as you started, you had a conversation about frameworks, and that it is important to build investor readiness at national level, thinking about building trade, cultural exchange, national investment flows. Now, over to you. When it comes to Vision 2050, wote tunaishangilia, tunasherekea. How many of us have read Dira ya Taifa 2050? So kama jirani yako hajanyoosha mkono, naomba umwambie oya, ebu changamka. Yes. When it comes to Vision 2050, it positions digital transformation as foundational to Tanzania's long-term competitiveness. From your leadership at the ICT Commission, I'd like to know, how is Tanzania's digital infrastructure and institutional coordination, yes, being designed not just for efficiency, but for investment, mobilization, and industrial growth? Karibu sana.
That's a very interesting question, actually. Our digital infrastructure, based on my remarks that I've given, the journey to build the digital infrastructure started in 2003. That's where we started. And whenever we talk about digital infrastructure, we mean two things: physical infrastructure and soft infrastructure. And all these are building the foundation to ensure that all the goals that we have put ourselves as, in the government, are able to be delivered with this infrastructure. So in a hard infrastructure, everyone understands the backbone, the telecommunication towers, the equipment and things of that sort. We all understand, based on the statistics of TCRA, TCRA is our regulator. They normally give the statistics every 3 months. the number of smartphones that we have in our digital economy, there are 26 million. So I'll start from there. 26 million means 26 units that are functioning in our digital economy. So to an investor, that is a market for itself. I remember there's a one time I attended this meeting in Geneva in ITU, and in the break time, we were discussing about how big the market of digital economy is in many African countries and things like that. And when I mentioned to them, at that time it was 23 million smartphones, everyone started to be very serious with me. And one gentleman said, now we understand there's one specific company in Tanzania, mobile company. He said he understands why that company can never leave Tanzania. So we have a bigger market in here. Because if you look at those numbers, the numbers show every quarter there are new number of smartphones which are entering there. And I want to stress on one thing. Whenever we talk about digital economy, in another way, digital economy means economy of people. So the more people you have, the more the strength of your economy or how competitive it is. No wonder now you find those countries that they have a bigger population in the world, that they digitally transform themselves, they become even more powerful. I just come here, I attended the AI Impact Summit last week. If you see the number of innovations that they have and the aspirations that they have, you understand that the country is marching to be one of the powerhouse when it comes to innovation. Now come to Tanzania. We are, according to the census of 2022, we are 62 million. Digital economy says, since you have the normal GDP of the economy that we have, we normally measure it. Digital economy wants, if possible, maybe 50 million out of 62 million. I'm excluding the kids and things like that. They have to have digital ID number. Digital ID number, once someone is having digital ID number, you start to have digital population. So whenever I mention like 26 million smartphones, means, of course, 26 doesn't mean that 26 people, right? Maybe actual people, there are 14 million, things like that, because I have 2 smartphones, but they are functioning. So we need to provide digital ID, and that's what has been articulated very well by Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of United Republic of Tanzania, that everyone who is living in Tanzania, I'm escaping say every Tanzanian, everyone is living in Tanzania should have a digital ID number. Because if you have a digital ID number, you'll be able to access digital services that are provided in our country. That's one. 2, everyone must have an access to instant payment system. In our country, we have these systems that we call TIPS. It's there to enable people to perform transactions. And then all digital platforms, not only belonging to government, but digital platform, even the one belonging to private sector, they are supposed to be able to talk to each other. So those 3 things, they're creating something that is called digital public infrastructure. It's a foundation infrastructure that is an enable any investor that is coming to Tanzania to invest, they will start to look at that. Because investors, they don't want to start to build enabling infrastructure. They want to see the economy that have those infrastructure, and then they can innovate on top. Because their aim is to provide services, of course, and they're business people. They're supposed to get return of their investment. So we as government, we have built the DPI, the digital public infrastructure, ready for investors to come to invest in Tanzania and take advantage of that in almost all sectors of economy of Tanzania. So Tanzania is ready for that. We are leading in the continent when it comes to DPI. We have been able to create our own DPI in our country. We have digital ID number, which is NIDA number, you all understand. We have the interoperability system, which we have created ourselves. It's called JNICC Exchange. And also we have the instant payment system, which was created 10 years ago. So we started some years ago. So we are ready for that. We are attracting all the investors that they want to come because the cost of investing in the digital economy for Tanzania is much lesser. Investor doesn't need to build the DPI. The DPI has been built by the government. So that's what I can comment so far. Thank you very much.
Say, demonstrate that we are moving from digital ambition to digital execution. You have mentioned tips. You have mentioned tips. You have mentioned Jamii exchange. I'd like to know practically.
They spend 3,000 Tanzanian shillings. If you do your mathematics, you become a millionaire already. So what I'm normally tell startups to look at those numbers and work hard to create an innovation that will enable one to use it maybe 7 days per year, right? And you make $1 per smart. It's to the global network of many countries which are landlocked in our country. So to me, whenever I look at it, I see that it's very easy for innovators in our country to use those numbers that we have, to take advantage of strategic direction that we have, to gain access not only to the market of Tanzania, but market of Zambia, Burundi, Rwanda, Malawi, and things of that sort. So we have a gold mine. What we are supposed to do is to enable the startup to be able to innovate. And Her Excellency, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan has started that. She has set aside amount of fund that you have heard from our guest of honor, and she's going to continue to invest in that because we know the returns are bigger. As government, we are looking for impact. Whenever we invest, we expect two things to happen. One, those innovations to be able to create job for youth, and two is to make sure that digital economy is contributing substantially in the GDP of our country. And that's what is our interest there.
Another hand of applause to Dr. Mwasaga. There's a gold mine, 26 million smartphones. There's an enabling environment that's been created. And of course, one of the things that we cannot move from is there has been a shift and we are seeing movement and progress going on, but we also have to be very pragmatic in understanding that there are different issues that are keeping us from moving over that tipped scale. We need to tip onto the other side. So then we are at the edge of the precipice of a great rise within our economy and so forth. I'd like to now jump to the ecosystem, talking about pipeline and scale, because you did speak about startups really leveraging this opportunity. Mr. Mtambalike, you operate at the intersection of innovation, public institution, and investment. In your experience over the years, and then of course another hand of applause, Sahara Ventures, 10 years in 2025. Ladies, what has shifted in Tanzania's digital ecosystem that makes startups more investor ready today than 5 years ago? And then of course I'd like to throw in there, what needs to shift in even more to catalyze Tanzania's innovation, digital ecosystem to catalyze our growth so we can be competitive, not just regionally, but also globally in the next 5 years?
Asante. So I'm humbly appreciating this opportunity. Kazi na utu. Na nimesema hii salamu kwa sababu mwanzo watu wote walikuwa wajui wajibu nini mheshimiwa. Jamani, kazi na utu ni tunasonga mbele. Kazi na utu? Ya, sawa. Kwenye private sector huko hatujuagi hizi salamu kidogo. Anyway, so when I look at the ecosystem, I think I look at it at three critical layers. So the first layer is people, the second layer is process, and the third layer is systems. So I will look on what have we done well, and what do we need to do better. So when you start with people, we look at the mindset and the culture. Back in 2019, we were working with the late Professor Ben Andulu with the Prosperity Commission to push the agenda of fourth industrial revolution in the mainstream government. And eventually, for the first time, issue ya mapinduzi makubwa ya nne ya viwanda kwenye CCM party manifesto. But it wasn't easy because the perception of the people was technology, digital transformation, AI, these are just basically toys. We need to focus on classrooms, we need to focus on hard infrastructure, but now the mindset has changed. When you hear my good friend, Dr. Mkundwe, speaking about digital public infrastructure and how much is investing to create a conducive environment for businesses and startups to flourish, this is the kind of mindset you want to see. So the critical aspect of that first part, which is basically people, it is very positive right now in terms of reforms. We are seeing more collaboration. We are seeing more discussion around interoperability. We are seeing more discussion around startup financing. We understand that COSTECH, there is Samia Fund, which is more than 4.6 billion government investment going to startups. We are seeing the likes of Imbeju by CRDB and partners. We're seeing the Funguo Fund. So this is the kind of mindset and culture you want to see in a flourishing startup ecosystem where people are open to collaborate, work together, but also creating a practical system. The down part of the people part is we need to move fast and make decisions quick because the world is not waiting for us. When we look at our neighbors, but also regional and global strategic partners, collaborators, and competitors, they understand how things are moving and they're ready to catch up really quick. We are taking a bit of time to make some decisions, and that I think is one of our key bottlenecks. On the second component, which is basically now the process, and the process is basically our policies and regulations. I think Dr. Mkundwe said already, there's a lot of things happening. We have the digital framework, 2034, clearly where do we want to be as a country when it's come to digital transformation. I was told this morning by TSA, the Tanzania startup policy formulation is still at the draft stage. We are progressing compared to where we are 8 months ago. I will say the downside of the process side is we need to move from talks to actual executions. We need to move from papers and document to actually things being operationalized so that we can capitalize in the opportunities that are coming up. And finally, on the system side, which is basically the technology and the infrastructure aspect, I think this is a place where we're doing really, really good, to be honest. If you look at the investment around national fiber optic cable, if you look at conversations that are happening right now with digital innovation sandboxes, BOT has been very open with their fintech sandboxes. Now startup can integrate. TSCRIs, they are doing the same when it's come to digital connectivity sandboxes. But now we need to move from ad hoc and uncoordinated activities to more structured, strategic direction when it's come to the sandboxes so that startups can be able to capitalize on massive existing public infrastructure that government has. I like what Director Nkundo was saying, to access 26 million people as your potential client. Yes, that's number one, to have it as a number. But beyond that, you need to create a conducive environment where startup can be able to integrate easily and smoothly in a public infrastructure, whether it's in payment, whether it's on users, whether it's on data exchange, so that they can be able to actually commercialize their products and services and businesses on top of these infrastructures. So in summary, when I look at our process, are doing good. We just need to improve in terms of moving from papers to actual execution. In terms of our systems and digital infrastructure, we need to move now beyond the infrastructure layer to look at the application layer and eventually on e-commerce. And on the people side, now we need to move beyond just having the right culture and mindset to have a people who are ready to move and move fast. So that will be my response. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello. Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, naona niweke mic pembeni manake haiko tayari for the revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to directly move to you, Mr. Turumela. One of the things that I love that the conversation is now framing is also connecting very much with what our guest of honor did say this morning, that we must move from paper to execution and really look at deepening interventions. From your regional advisory experience in digital governance, cybersecurity, and risk management, how do you believe strong digital assurance frameworks and compliance systems directly translate into enhanced investor readiness or investor confidence, more rather, in emerging markets like Tanzania? So how do strong digital assurance
to just run with the idea? They don't really look at the overall picture. They don't look at the full picture, which is why regulatory risk becomes one of the biggest challenges or roadblocks for a startup. So when you're looking at a due diligence report, or when we're advising clients, or when we're looking at investor readiness, the first thing that we look at is, are there any legal obligations? Are there any regulatory obligations that you probably may have not looked at? That's the first thing. Second, if a business is not structured, if it's just the idea that's there and it's not tangible, which means that that particular idea cannot probably take off and cannot be a need to the normal person, then the cost of acquiring a user becomes very high. So the question is, yes, we have 26 million smartphones. That's fantastic. Question is, what is the cost of acquiring a user as a startup? Is your idea tangible enough? Is it something that you want to use on a daily basis? Is it something that's a necessity? Is it solving a problem? That becomes a critical question to any startup owner. Because what we've seen in the past is, and this is a general trend that I've seen, a lot of investors are willing to put in money just because if the business is able to generate revenue. But the truth is, if the business is not sustainable, is that capital sufficient to sustain the business in the long term? It's not. So again, coming back to my ecosystem panelists' view of people, processes, and technology, the question is still relevant. Is your business able to tick off those boxes? If it is, then what kind of structures do you have in place? When we say structures, we're not introducing bureaucracy. We're introducing functioning silos that work together. Why? Because you want to challenge something, or are you going to take away someone else's food from the table? So that becomes a very big challenge. Yes, you know, investors want to come onto the platform. They want to throw in money. They want to see the money grow. The truth is, are you actually solving a problem? Are you replacing it with a new monster? Right? Then talking about the cyber resilience, you know, we've talked about cyber security, the platform security, etc. The question is, how much have boardrooms actually invested into having this as a boardroom conversation? We're talking about digital innovation. We're talking about transformation. But today I can tell you that 9 out of 10 companies do not have a board advisor who is in the capacity of an information systems consultant. Everyone is either finance or human resources or talking about investments. They're all money people or people people. No one's ever talked about the technology. What we do about technology is the governance decision, outsource. So who's going to sit with the risk? Again, third-party risks comes in. So you see, there are so many moving parts here when you're looking at a particular investment portfolio that it will just not make sense. It's not just the policy. It's not just having the right policies in place. It's actually seeing those policies come to life. I'll give you an example. So we had a particular client where the investor wanted to see how ready they are in terms of investment, and the capital adequacy was quite high. So you're talking about a couple of million euro. Now, the question is, when you go to do the due diligence or when you want to, suggest that either you want to advise if it's a yes or a no, the question becomes how ready are they in the market? And when you go there and you find that half the things that are there in the policy do not even exist, surely the question is, do you want to get the money or the fund to drive up this particular thing as a vision, or are you helping them in setting up their business? So that becomes a double-edged sword, because you don't know if you want to invest, you don't know if the business is going to be successful and sustainable. And at the same time, if the fund doesn't come in, the business may not move forward. So it becomes a catch-22 situation for a lot of people. And that is why we keep emphasizing on investor readiness based on risk, to actually understand what kind of risks do they want to take up, what kind of risks are they ready for, what's their risk appetite overall, and lastly, what are the kind of costs that they're looking at in terms of sustaining this particular enterprise, and what kind of return on investment are they looking at? And that enables the overall decision on transparency and how this particular process can actually scale up.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Makofi kwake. Governance strength, it basically strengthens trust. We have to think about how we are literally embedding that within the company. And I love what you said about the boards. The fact of the matter is, I hope that kila mtu hapa mwenye kampuni ataweza kujiuliza, je, do I have that person on my board? Do I have that person in our company right now? So that we make sure that we are making the strategic shift and not waiting for it to be forced upon us. Miss Molel. Through the Stanbic Business Incubator, you work directly with SMEs, not just here in Dar, but across Tanzania, and you also work with high growth enterprises. How does structured incubation, particularly backed by a financial institution, which is a model that we are seeing largely come up in Tanzania, and it's great and we celebrate it. How does this literally improve investor readiness and enterprise sustainability, connected, of course, with what we've just heard?
Thank you, Alila. Good morning, everyone. Or is it afternoon?
Morning.
All right. So part of why the corporates are now getting, quote unquote, their boots dirty and going to the field is realizing that there are, in the ecosystems, there are various actors. And as much as there's active, financial service providers are influential participant actors in that ecosystem. And so when we speak capital flows, the appetite from financial sectors determines a lot of how that flow goes and where it goes. And also when we speak on enablement, when we speak about the future of the country being on a gap between how we are reaching the unreached, we're serving underserved, then we cannot sit on our boardrooms and hope someone else is going to participate in that. So I think that is just to realize where we are standing as corporates or as financial service providers. But then how do we play also matters. Taking into consideration the opportunities that are been pointed out by the fellow panelists and the edges that we have to coordinate or engage with. I would say structured incubation starts with the target audience, who's usually, we're saving 70% right now, I think, with the numbers from TSA last report saying from 2020 to last year, there was a 300% growth in startups registering or starting ideas. But with the same number, when you go to financial, you're going to check how are they surviving, and 40% of that number, they have a 4 months lifeline, 4 months. And so that translates to how many startups then fail. Now we're not talking about the first 3 years, but we're talking on the first year, or rather the first 6 months. So of course that speaks on the capacity, as largely pointed out, and capacity on information, of course, how to do things, what is better, what is known, knowns, what are the known unknowns, and most of the startups are not ready to navigate this, if at all. Even a global standard of a successful startup is a 40-year person. Yeah, that's pointed out as the most successful startup would be 40 years. Our median age in the country is what, 17, 20? And so do you want to wait for 20 years? So you double down on who is there that can guide these startups, and that's where incubation comes in. So the first years, they are getting the right information on the capacity side, but also they get to be profiled in a manner that package them for global or continent standards, but also they get access to these markets, because access, in a way, it's as good as knowing the platform exists. Yeah. And so to get access to market. And lastly, we come to financial. So that's the role that we believed in the beginning, that's where we play. Yeah. But realizing that all these steps have to be taken for to close that cycle. Now we go to the financial service provider. Banking is a relationship business. And so surprising enough, or a shocker, is most of these innovative enterprises or startups, they meet a bank at a point of need. And what kind of relationship is that? So we are now going to the discussions around, say, access to finance, but in terms of activity-based, in terms of your scorecard. So there's so much work that the government, as well as other players, are doing around that. But the point is, when it comes to financial access, we are answering an incubation side, patient and also risk-tolerant capital. And the only way you are going to do that is so you have comfort. How do you comfort? You mitigate the risk. The risk is what? The business itself. So you stay with it long enough so that you can make a conducive day-to-day, that they are able to productively put the idea into market, if it's commercializing, if it's to, say, for those that start to solve a problem, the social enterprises, so they can make enough impact for them to go out on their way. So for now, we stay with startup for 9 months. And I'll give you an example. Some of them, when they come on the onboarding, we tell them, I know there's an idea that won when you are applying for this, but you also have the back pockets. History says that a startup to develop, they might be on their third idea. Even those that have graduated to say, I have successfully done this, if you ask them properly, that is on their third business. So we say, bring them all along with us. And we start from ideation stage. Is it solving a problem? Does it meet all the regulatory, the financials? Is the model even right to the environment? Because again, when they're ideating, what informs them is not our market. It's someone else's market. They watch a YouTube video or anything. So the information is good, but is it contextualized to the sectors that we play and the appetite in the economy? So I think you need to, all this structure is to answer to that. You give an opportunity, yes, but realizing that for it to be sustainable, all the actors in that ecosystem have to play an active role. And for us, it so happens that the financial service providers are also going to actively participate in incubating these businesses in one way or another, either by partnership or having an incubation center themselves.
Thank you very much. A hand of applause to Ms. Molel, but also to the Stanbic Business Incubator, because you have done great work. And so far you have graduated how many?
On our first year, we did 500, then that was 2022. Then we went to 1,500, 3,500. Last year, we did our 5,000. This year, we're hoping we're going for 10,000. That is on reach. We are not doing this alone. We have so many partners that we're working with to do this. And ladies and gentlemen, there's still a very big need out there. So when you call for application, you see the number of denied. And with incubation, it's not you're denied because you're not able to, it's because we have limited capacity. So I'll employ everyone here to try and see how we can collaborate. And
Absolutely.
up that number, thank you.
Thank you very much. Another hand of applause, because again, to what our guest of honor reminded us this morning, it cannot be done in isolation. Ladies and gentlemen, the time I have been given has run out. But before I ask the panel to stand up for a group photo, I'd like to implore all of us to engage in a question. Just take a moment and think about it very actively. If Tanzania, and before my question, I'm going to ask you to think, what country, which nation in Africa is the most competitive when it comes to digital transformation, when it comes to their digital economy, their progress? I know you have a country in mind. Maybe you're seeing a flag, maybe you're seeing a people, but you have a country in mind. So the question is, if Tanzania were to compete with that country that you have in mind, that digitally advanced market, over the next decade, that is the next 10 years, what is the one structural reform that we must prioritize immediately? And when I talk about this reform, it is not just within government, because every time we hear reform, it's like, hey, Dr. Nkundo, it is you. Mgeni rasmi niwe. No. What structural reform must we incorporate immediately to how we operate, how we think, how we learn, how we coordinate, how we collaborate, not compete, how we collaborate to create a competitive platform or competitive market, and hence we can move forward? How do we move to pointed fingers of they should to ownership and responsibility? Ladies and gentlemen, and with that, I thank you. I thank my panel. I thank I4D, the East Africa Nordic, the summit. Ladies and gentlemen, makofi kwenu pia. I do hope you'll be able to engage with that question. I implore you, when you go out for any break, share what country you had in mind and share the answers, because it is very important, as Mr. Leundi kept reminding us, that we engage, that we speak, and that we ensure that we're coming out of here with something practical. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, nawashukuru sana, asanteni sana, naombeni tusimame tupige picha kwa pamoja.
All right, thanks for applauding Halila. Very powerful herself, as well as the panel. Hope you've truly enjoyed it, and continue to engage. So as that happens, ladies and gentlemen, we'll flow on. Muntarzir Fazel, CEO, Grant Thornton, Tanzania. May I please welcome you for your remarks. With our hands, ladies and gentlemen, please.
Kamera ziko sawa? Honorable Dr. Piyush Chaya, Deputy Minister, President's Office for Planning and Investment, distinguished guests, leaders of industry, innovators, investors, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. So I am here representing Grant Thornton, and it is truly an honor to be here as a strategic partner on this particular summit representing the private sector. The theme of the summit truly reflects the urgency and the opportunity of this moment. Tanzania and the wider East Africa region stands at a defining point in its economic transformation. Digital economy is now no longer a future aspiration, it is here. It is the foundation of competitiveness, productivity, and sustainable growth. Tanzania's digital journey has been intentional. We have already heard from the Director General here. From early ICT reforms in public institutions to national policies and the establishment of dedicated digital governance bodies, the country has consistently positioned technology as a driver for socio-economic change. Today, we enter a new era, an era that is shaped by artificial intelligence, cloud computing, digital public infrastructure, cybersecurity, automation, data-driven decision-making. These are not abstract concepts anymore. These are practical tools that help us to improve service delivery, unlock trade efficiencies, strengthen transparency, and widen opportunities. So as private sector leaders, our role is not just to take part in this transformation, but to actively support and accelerate it. At Grant Thornton, what do? We provide professional services. So through our audit, tax, and advisory work, we partner with businesses, with investors, with public institutions to build the financial integrity, the governance systems, and strategic clarity that is needed, again, for sustainable growth. We believe digital transformation has to rest on transparency, accountability, sound financial management, and strong regulatory compliance. When these foundations are in place, innovation turns into real economic results: increased trade, more efficient public services, stronger SMEs, greater investor confidence, and meaningful job creation for young people. As we've consistently heard, we've got one of the youngest populations in the world. Innovation has to be ambitious, but it also has to be structured and scalable if we want it to create a lasting impact. If we look at the three themes on our summit today, we're talking about innovation, trade, and investment. And I would like to say that innovation is our starting point. Through AI-powered solutions, digital trade platforms, startup incubation ecosystems, and applied research, we create these systems that will be able to turn ideas into enterprise, and enterprises then into economic value. Trade then becomes the multiplier to this. And this one particularly, when we're looking at the relationship that we're hoping to develop with the Nordic states, a digitally enabled business in Dar es Salaam should then be able to reach customers in Stockholm, in Copenhagen, in Helsinki, or Malmo, efficiently and transparently. Digital trade transformation, infrastructure, the secure systems around it, the standards that we have to hold ourselves to, the export tools, all of this is essential to reducing friction and expanding cross-border commerce. And finally, investment. Investment then will be the accelerator. A strong digital ecosystem will require long-term capital, will require public-private partnerships, which I know there's a panel on later on as well, will enable regulatory frameworks and a skilled digital workforce. Investors look for markets that have clarity, readiness, and innovation capacity. And I think we can all see that Tanzania is strengthening all three areas. The partnership between Tanzania, East Africa as a whole, and the Nordic countries is uniquely powerful because it is complementary. We've heard already how the Nordic countries lead globally in terms of digital governance, sustainability, green technology, and digital systems. What do we have in East Africa? We are looking at market dynamism, rapid adoption of technology, entrepreneurial drive, and one of the youngest populations in the world. This is not a relationship of just one side supporting the other. It is a relationship of co-creation. It is a relationship of working together, of cooperation. When we co-invest in scalable industries, when we work together to design digital systems, we build sustainable trade corridors that are powered by technology. It is possible when we do this together. So as we move through our discussions today, I encourage us to look at implementation. Let us focus at what is needed. I really liked the point earlier made by the moderator on ecosystem. They will do, they will do. No, it's not about them. Ecosystem is us all. And definitely we need to do this. So we together need to structure. We need to structure bankable digital infrastructure projects. We need to design cross-border innovation programs. We need to clarify our regulatory requirements and specifically our tax requirements and our tax regulations, align our policies with emerging technologies. We all remember what happened when blockchain and Bitcoin started. We were not sure which way we're going to head. There was actually a time when we were instructed, don't look at this in our region. Now we've seen the steps that have been taken by the central bank to actually encourage and look at the policies around this. So the digital economy is no longer a single sector. It is now the operating system of modern development. Tanzania today stands at a moment of real possibility. With stronger government commitment, dynamic private sector leadership, and strategic partnerships with the Nordic region, we can position not just our country, but the region as a whole as a competitive digital bridge. On behalf of Grant Thornton in East Africa, and specifically in Tanzania, I reaffirm our commitment to supporting Tanzania's digital economy by embracing innovation and combining technology with our regional experience and global standards. We aim to help businesses grow sustainably and give investors, both locally as well as hopefully our Nordic partners, greater confidence in their decisions. We remain committed to working with governments, investors, and businesses across East Africa and the Nordic region to build an environment where innovation thrives, trade expands, and investment flows with confidence. With those few words, I thank you for your attention. This was not entirely AI documented. I did use it to tailor it up a little bit. But once again, thank you for your attention. I handle back now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for reinforcing the. All right, thank you, honorable guest of honor, stepping out. Mr. Muntazir, thank you very much for reinforcing the importance of governance and investor confidence. We appreciate you very much, and there's a card for you. All right, as for us remaining, now the panel discussions, I'm going to be a little bit tight with time for the next one that's coming up, and also to our strategic speakers. And so as I welcome Mr. Gabriel Bundala, please come through, sir. Karibu. You're picking up from, what's the good time now? It's 12:03. We've got a good 25 minutes or so. Karibu sana, please.
You always talk of time when I'm coming on the stage. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope we had a great session in the morning. Na dada yangu Halila. Mine is not a high pitch like her. So to be a little bit more calm. But yeah, I hope it's going to be an exciting, and the foundation that Halila and the panelists have laid in the first session is really intriguing because we are building from there. And the last point that she mentioned is that it's about structure. So now we've discussed, so this conference is about digital economy, it's about innovation, but it's also about collaboration and partnership. But at the core of partnerships, you can't talk of partnerships if you are not able to collect or gather or mobilize capital to do anything. And in the initial discussions from Stanbic Incubator, I remember her point, Kai mentioned in terms of how they are doing to look at the organizations, to look at the small firms, the small startups, and build them up. But now the question comes is, how do we structure capital? And the key point is that the innovation and in the digital age, how do we structure capital in a manner that is enabling in the digital economy? But at the center of all of that is the word that everyone now speaks of, sustainability, ESG. Everyone wants to throw that word whenever they speak of their organization. And it has come at a time when even organizations now are, the auditors are saying things like, these people are greenwashing or green hashing, because everyone now speaks of themselves as being green, as being pro-green, as being ESG and sustainable. But at the end of the day, is it just a PR stunt? Is it just branding? Or is there real value in it? So I think today we are going to explore that. And at the intersection of green, at the intersection of innovation and growth and digital aspects, how do we mobilize capital in all these instances? So ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to welcome my panel. I will start with give me 1 second. I will start with Dr. Mimi Stith. Please welcome on board. A round of applause, please. So Dr. Mimi Stith is the president of Pula Group. It's an investment and advisory firm. So it's an ESG-aligned investment strategies and for enterprise. So a round of applause again for Dr. Mimi Stith. And I would like to bring back on the panel Kai Moller from Stanbic Incubator. A round of applause, please. The third is Mr. Burak from AfriCapital. A round of applause, please. So AfriCapital, Mr. Burak is the Chief Executive Officer of AfriCapital Investment Holding Limited, private investment firm focused on scalable opportunities across Africa. He brings expertise in private equity, cross-border capital structuring, and long-term investment strategies in emerging markets. So his work is structured on banking, ventures, and strengthening governance frameworks. So we have a live panel that will be able to give us a lot of context and a lot of understanding about what it means and where we are on how to structure capital and mobilize capital towards the objective that we have. So I have an additional panelist, but I think he's gone outside. Dr. Nkundu, I will ask him to get on the panel when he comes back. So ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause, please, before we begin. Asante-san. So I'll start with you, Dr. Mimi. When I was sitting there, I was just looking at Pula and the website, and from it, I've come across the founding notion of it. Pula is coming from the Swana word. It's a Swana word which means rain and wealth and money. From reading more, they say that rain, the meaning of Pula is rain in the first instance, but because rain enabled them to get wealth. And so it means, and also it means wealth and money. So that's intriguing and it's interesting. So the first question is to you, is to, with your organization mantra of doing good and investment while doing good, how do you see ESG aligned investment, and what public policy infrastructure would you like to see to enable the ESG kind of investments for growth that you would anticipate?
Good afternoon, everyone. First, thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. Greetings to government representatives. I think all protocols have been observed. First, I want to start with why I thought it was important to come here today and why I'm here today. I did my postdoc in Norway at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. We focused on a research project here in Tanzania, and I've seen the synergies between Norway and Tanzania and the Nordic countries more broadly. And so I wanted to be supportive of that. I also wanted to be supportive of Mr. Patrick's first effort to convene this group. Pula invests in critical minerals. We're a big believer in being there at the foundation. We're a big believer in being first in. We're a big believer in supporting innovators. The third reason is the focus on youth. Now more than ever, the commitment to supporting youth, the commitment to developing sectors that will provide a livelihood for youth over decades to come is very important. And so again, I thank you for inviting me. Now getting to the question at hand, my grandfather always told me, talk about what you know about. So I'm going to talk about critical minerals. The relationship between critical minerals and innovation, there are many. Critical minerals are at the backbone of many of these technologies, certainly batteries. And in the critical mineral space in Tanzania, we have benefited from innovation. I think the best example of that is the mining cadastre, which is a completely digitized platform of licenses and license owners here in Tanzania. And if you haven't checked it out, do check it out. It's accessible and it gives you a real sense of where mining and exploration is happening in the country, who's doing it, what PLs, what special mining licenses are out there. But what I'd like to really focus on is the critical mineral space as an example of innovation. Hopefully the lessons that we've learned there can be helpful to digital innovators. We acquired our graphite assets in 2016 when people thought graphite was just for pencils. We now know that Tanzania has the opportunity to be a graphite hub, to establish itself as a battery manufacturing hub globally. So the innovation was that Tanzania can be a hub, that we have enough graphite to compete against China, to compete against Turkey, to compete against Norway, to compete against the United States as a provider of graphite and graphite products. So the first lesson is identify the innovation. And there was a critical mass of companies that committed to that innovation. The second thing we had to do was bet on ourselves. Mineral exploration, accessing capital, and that's one of the points I want to talk about, is not easy for mineral exploration, right? I mean, we're not at the bankable feasibility study stage yet. So it required us to bet on ourselves, and I encourage you all to do that. We have developed a kind of friends and family model for developing exploration projects. We used house money to establish 160 million ton resource estimate of graphite down in Ruangwa. So that's the second point I'd make. The third is we then got the support from the government that we needed. Tanzania is a leader when it comes to regulatory frameworks for minerals and for critical minerals. And that extends to local content, to the support of infrastructure. A number of these government interventions that make Tanzania's graphite sector global. Down in Ruangwa, the road from Ruangwa to Mtwara port is nearly entirely paved. Dropped high voltage power lines 4 kilometers from our project. So that government support is critical. And the last point I'll make before closing is about accessing capital. And this is where I encourage Nordic partners to think differently. We can't use a top-down approach. We need a bottom-up approach. There are a number of innovators in this room, certainly in our sector, that did all of the things that I mentioned, identified an innovation, bet on themselves, encourage the government to make the regulatory reforms and stabilize the environment. And so as we look for capital, and the commercial banks have been really aggressive and exciting, and they play their role, but we're talking about early stage capital. We're talking about equity. And so a bottom-up approach is necessary. And I encourage them to think more seriously about fair valuations. because too often people come to this context and, they're looking for, quite frankly, to kind of lowball and get in on the cheap early. And innovators often have to take these deals because they don't see other options. And so I think both sides of the equation need to think about fairness. And I'll close on this point because it directly relates to the question asked. As I said, my grandfather told me to talk about what I know. And so what I've shared with you is what I know. When it comes to ESG standards and how that makes projects more competitive, we rely heavily on the markups related to ESG certifications, international ESG certifications. But I also encourage, foreign partners and local partners to think about national standards first. NEMC has some very rigorous environmental standards. Those are the ones that we seek first. I think Tanzania understands what ESG means for it. And you want to be careful that these certifications don't become barriers to entry. And so one of the ways to do that is to really focus on what national standards exist. So I hope critical minerals can be a helpful example for all you innovators. And I applaud all of the youth in this room today. And we look forward to being supportive of you and this great nation in decades to come. Thank you.
A round of applause. A round of Thank you, Dr. Mimi. And just before I go to Burak, just to kind of ask an additional question on that part on ESG, and feel free to see how you, because this session is about how we structure capital, and you've mentioned a little bit on that. How do you see, based on the models of capital that you understand, private sector has the ESG mandate, and in the past it used to be called CSR. Of course, a lot of organizations call it CSR, but they have these budgets and the likes. And you spoke about bottom-up kind of approach to capital building up. Do you see, or how do you see the opportunity for mobilizing that capital for a purpose? The ESG money, the ESG budget and CSR budget as capital towards something that is of impact.
So I'll keep this brief because I want to hear from my fellow panelists. I mean, first, when it comes to ESG and CSR, this is an area where the Tanzanian government has been forward thinking. In the mining sector, we have regulations regarding CSR. Pula has always been very serious. As you pointed out, our model is doing well while doing good. As an exploration company in critical minerals, we've got to stay true to the values of the clean energy transition. We've got to make sure that the transition is environmentally sound, but we also need to make sure that the transition is just. For us, we focus on local content, and we focused on local content before we used that term. So we've grown the local environment, laboratory, service providers, which is really important to see the multiplier effect of innovation. I mean, when you look at mining in other contexts, often you see these enclaves of innovation and technological expertise and financial heft, and none of that really circulates through the broader environment. And so that's something that we spend a lot of time focused on.
and I'll go back to a point that I made earlier, and that is we think about what ESG means for us in this context. And it helps us identify partners in this context across various scales. And when we look for outside investment, we're very clear on what our priorities are and who our partners are. In order to get around the greenwashing thing, you got to know who you are and what you stand for. And so we've been through a number of dialogues internally with the government, with our community partners, with international certification bodies, with third-party independent consultants to determine what ESG looks like for us. We're very clear on that, and we use that as a way to develop partnerships here within Tanzania and broadly.
Asante sana for that. Now I'll turn to Burak. From your private investors perspective, which you are. In Tanzania, we have the DIRA 2050, and we have a lot of frameworks, public frameworks. But what do you think would be the best way to structure those frameworks to increase investors' confidence in the space?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me. When it comes to frameworks, I'm going to keep it brief because everything starts with the regulatory frameworks. Set, stable, but more importantly, consistent frameworks. That's what investors like, because I would say maybe the biggest challenge or biggest enemy when it comes to investment ecosystem is the uncertainties. Especially political and economical uncertainties in the country. But if the frameworks are set and stable and consistent for a long time, I'm not talking about 2-3 years to come, but for 10, 15, 20 years to come, that is extremely important, which will provide confidence to the investors. On a different point, which is also very related to this, I'm gonna follow Dr. Mimin's grandfather's advice. So I'm gonna speak of not what I know, but something from my own experience. When it comes to ESG, there should be a transition for a line ESG perspective, but not from the get-go, not from the starting point, because that is really becoming a harsh task for the investees, for the startups, and they are failing to do so. So if there are any representatives or direct investors in the room from the Nordic countries, so that is one aspect that I would like you to look at it for the mutual benefit, because if that starting point would be considerably easier for the startups, you will see better returns because you are investing to get good returns anyways. So yeah, that is a point that I wanted to make.
Thank you. A round of applause, please. So Burak, you've touched on a couple of points on there, and maybe a quick light up additional question is, what makes you confidence of investment, digital investment led in East Africa at this point in time?
Well, you don't need to be a rocket engineer to know that this is the place to invest. When you look at the entire globe, literally, no offense to anyone from other countries, but there are only two places left. It's Latin America and Africa. With the when you look at the demographics, young population, growing market, resources, pretty much everything. This is really the place. And when you look at the African continent, sub-Saharan Africa, and particularly East Africa, is even coming more forward. So Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, but particularly Tanzania, when you look at the size of the country, the population, the resources, the growing population, as we all know, Tanzania is one of the youngest demographics, not only in Africa, but in the world. In 2050, if I'm not mistaken, we are expecting a population of 130 million people here. And at that time, more than 60% will be below 20 years old. I mean, look at these numbers. It's really amazing. But of course, there's a question of utilizing that opportunity as well. But long story short, this is the place to invest. This is the place to be. And for any investor, whether individual or institutional or even governments, if they are not looking at East Africa and in Tanzania now, I can tell you that they will regret in the next 5 or 10 years.
So we've heard from the investor's perspective, both private capital as well as a more green-friendly kind of thinking investment like Pula. But what about the perspective from the recipient side of things? And this is over to you, Kai. From your experience with the Stanbic Business Incubator, and you mentioned that you've had 500 graduates and then another set, but you'll explain. So what distinguishes between a really investment-ready startup? I mean, we've heard of my IDA earlier on, from one that is just starting out, especially when we consider the aspects of scaling and industrial kind of growth.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to share my thoughts again. So I'll start off with the sustainability, which was the grand theme of the panel. And I would like to sort of emphasize on what has been shared, that we are mandated as the citizen of the world to not doing less harm, but rather to move to doing more good. And that is a responsibility we all carry, and that is the theme of the sustainability agenda. And so with us as an organization, being in the continent for 160 years and in the market here in Tanzania, as Stanbic Bank, we are here for 30 years now, and we are hoping that we are going to do many more hundreds of years in this market. I think that calls for your claps, but you know, we will take it. We have a commitment that in 2050, as a company, as a group of company, in all the 20 markets we operate, we're going to be net zero. And being a financial institution, that goes 100% to what we finance. And so currently, our credit score system has ESG metrics incorporated on them. And doing that so well, we've realized that we have to move again beyond just charity. So that's CSR, your contribution to the community in which you're making profit out of it, to your responsibility as an organization to the survival of that community. And so now we're saying, if we are in that agenda, if we're in that journey as an organization, we need to go with our community. And I want to congratulate, we partner with a platform, I think it's a month now. We have what we call Sustainability Academy, and that touches your question. How are we assisting, how are we supporting the startups so that they are not only sustainable for themselves, but also that reflects on the solutions that they give to the community. And so currently we are chanting the number of 400 that have gone through the Sustainability Academy, and they have a base on what is water stewardship, for example, and how that translates to the solution that they're making. How's energy transition going to be employed in my, say, it's a startup venture? I'm a processing company. I'm making my spices. It's as simple as that. How is that translated to the machinery I purchase? How is the climate around financing now? Because we are opening up this, not only the opportunity side, and that was my issue. The community I'm in, and am I going to tell so and so you have to have these practices present, while I know they are not able to handle even their day to day? And the solution there was, how do I do it well by showing them the opportunities it brings. And so now, as financial institutions, I'll speak for us, we have special financing that is going around energy transition, for example. We have appetite in that. And so we are growing the startups to go to that venture. We have those that are speaking on, say, sustainability financing. It's a big word, I know. But it just means those that employ the practices that speaks to the social, the environment, and also the governance in a holistic manner. So I think to sum it up, I would say the appetite is there. There is many structural solutions that are being deployed. There's frameworks. The regulator themselves are putting these in what needs to be done. By say the banks, the Bank of Tanzania has an emphasis on youth financing, has an emphasis on women financing. You know, you report on the number of underserved markets that you enter as a bank. You report on ESG metrics within your credit score. So I think there's so many ways in which this agenda speaks to, say, startup development, like the likes of MyAida, but also speaks to the grand theme of sustainability as an agenda in a global framework. Thank you.
And just before we conclude, because you've spoken of the caliber of entrepreneurs and the likes, and just in less than 1 minute or 30 seconds, what kind of financial discipline or governance posture that a successful startup would put itself into, and that would increase the confidence of the investors and strategic partners?
I say if I was to unpack that briefly, I would say the financial discipline that speaks to their personal finance, that translates to their business finance, because those two pockets, when you're starting, they are merging. Yeah, so it's as good as if you can do a good personal finance discipline, that can translate to your saying, how much am I getting this customer for? So CAC number, how's my flow? So how am I managing that? And my credit management as well, not going around and borrowing. And this is for those that are watching online. I'm sure anyone here is well versed with that. So those disciplines needs to start from self, and then they're translated to their ventures. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is a good reminder on all of us to look at our personal financial discipline and the likes, and other disciplines. So a round of applause again to my pleasant panelists. So I just want to conclude, and is because of time. I was interested also to hear from, I think we've already heard of that from the initial discussions, and it's important as we conclude this session to understand at the end of the day how these three aspects of private capital, government, as well as the need for the good to the community, how each of these pleasure as well for listening to this session. Thank you. A round of applause. So let's have a picture.
All right, congratulations, Mr. Bundala. Very well done, and congratulations to the panelists for covering our second panel today. And as you prepare for a photo moment, I'm going to set the room ready for what comes next. I think we have 3 main items coming up. So the very first one will be Oh, okay. Are they in the room? Yes. Okay, there they are. They are busy on their laptops with the pictures that they've taken already. You want to make sure those are loaded up already. So we're going to listen to the COO of one of our partners, CNS, Mr. George Bayona. Please prepare. And we look forward to your address as our strategic partner. And then we'll go into a fireside dialogue chat for the third panel, Scaling Cross-Border Investments in East Africa's Digital Economy. And Glenn Kapia, please prepare to moderate that in good time. We'll welcome our chair for closing remarks, Lulu Wanakilala. And then we'll invite you all, ladies and gentlemen, to a B2B matching and networking for all the delegates just outside the room. All right. So once again, we urge you not to miss that. And I hope you've enjoyed the session so far. Please put your hands together for Mr. George Bayona. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Taji. I'll try to keep it short due to time. Distinguished guests, partners, leaders, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As Taji introduced me, my name is George Bayona. I'm the COO at CNS Group. And it's truly a pleasure to be standing in front of everyone here. As CNS, we are a very young company, but to be on a stage with such distinguished leaders and guests is a huge privilege. Let me start with a simple observation from our side. So most businesses do not fail because they lack opportunity. They struggle because growth outpaces structure. Revenue increases, teams expand, operations become more complex, but systems, governance, compliance, and people framework often do not evolve at the same pace. So that's where CNS comes in, to bridge the gap between growth and structure. As we've listened and heard from our panelists, structure compliance is very key for investors when they're looking for places to invest, when they're analyzing businesses and trying to put in money for what they see as opportunities from their side. So who is CNS? I'm sure most of you do not know who we are or what we do. We've seen some spikes in our social medias, people searching, like, who are these guys? So for my short presentation, I just want to tell you who we are, what we do. So when you see us outside, you can come to us and discuss some of the things that we can assist you with. So CNS is a Tanzanian-rooted company. We are globally aligned. We do human capital and business advisory. Our mission is to help organizations build internal foundations that will allow the business to scale confidently and sustainably. And I think you've heard the word sustainable several times. So we're also into that. Our work revolves around three key pillars. First is people and organizational structures. What do I mean? So we design companies, or we help companies design clarity in reporting lines, roles, and performance expectations. We conduct structure reviews, job evaluations, salary benchmarking, and HR audits. For organizations that prefer to concentrate fully on their core business, we provide end-to-end HR management solutions. What does that entail? So we can operate as a fully outsourced HR department or serve as an employer of record for businesses that don't want to engage themselves in managing day-to-day HR activities. So in that capacity, we manage all your employees, statutory filings, payrolls, day-to-day management of your staff, grievance, and everything that entails under the HR umbrella. In essence, we ensure that your people systems are not merely operational, but strategically aligned to support your long-term success. Second, we deal with also compliance and governance. And as we've seen, investors look at compliance as not just paperwork that you put on your walls, but it's a protection for capital, protection for reputation of the company, and also long-term value of the company. So in CNS, we support companies with labor law compliance, tax filing, regulatory licensing, and to top it all off, we are now double certified, attaining to ISO for quality management and occupational health and safety as end of this month. So we are also registered under the data protection framework and are deeply embedded in the Tanzanian regulatory landscape. And we understand not just what the law says, but how the enforcement works in practice. So our role is to ensure that we minimize the business exposures to preventable risks when it comes to compliance. So we let them focus on growth and operations. Thirdly, we focus on growth, talent, and sustainability. Yeah? As your business scales, you need the right talent, you need the right ecosystem. We provide, to those cases, executive searches. We manage your work permits for expatriates if you need those. We deliver accredited training for developing your staff. We also serve clients with multiple sectors. We've dealt with clients in energy, mining, technology, as you see in my IDA. We also work with companies in manufacturing and also in different stages where the companies need pivotal transition moments. Yeah? Either you're entering the company you want to invest, either you want to expand your operations, or you want to prepare for a certain investment that is coming in, or you want to restructure the company for more efficiency. To close, at CNS, we build structure, compliance, people-aligned institutions that can endure market cycles. Our team, I've come with my team today. There's two ladies that you will see who will be around networking. And I think if you're thinking about expanding, if you're thinking about strengthening your compliance, if you're thinking about getting ready for investment, as we can see, we generally welcome your discussion. We'll be ready to chat and see how we can help you or assist in your transformation. And that said, thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward for a conversation with my head. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for the introduction, and looking forward to the engagement. So, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the final panel? Okay, let's look forward to it. Thank you, George. We move on, and let me bring up the moderator, Glenn Kapia. All right, sir, you're looking at cross-border investments in East Africa's digital economy. And please bring up your very esteemed panel. And we're looking at, we're actually late by an hour, so we stay within time. Asante-san.
Good afternoon. So yeah, we are pressed for time. We are going to improvise. So as I've been introduced, my name is Glenn Kapia. I am from Ponte Advisory. So this is a fireside chat. Perhaps some of you might be wondering where the fire is. So don't worry. You will feel the heat as the session wears on. So please kindly allow me to introduce my distinguished panel. Allow me to start with Mr. Andrew Mahiga, Country Director, Department of Business and Trade at the British High Commission. Andrew is a Tanzanian private sector development specialist with over 13 years of experience in policy engagement, trade facilitation, private sector advocacy, and business environment reform. He currently serves as the country director for the UK Department of Business and Trade in supporting UK-Tanzania trade and investment partnerships. He has previously worked with the US Commercial Service and the Tanzania private sector. A round of applause for Andrew, please. Gloria Lema, founder, Yellow Hills Consulting. Gloria is the founder of Yellow Hills Consulting, a business advisory firm focused on helping entrepreneurs and institutions build structured, scalable, and sustainable enterprises. She's a seasoned business consultant and certified master trainer with UNCTAD, with over 15 years of experience in designing and delivering entrepreneurship development programs across Africa. Her expertise lies in business systems development, operational structuring, leadership capacity building, and transforming founder-led enterprises into scalable organizations. She has worked with institutions including TIC, SIDO, TPSF, Enterprise Uganda, AFAWA, and other ecosystem actors, strengthening enterprise performance and investment readiness. Gloria brings practical insights into how digital and growth stage companies can move from ambition to structured scale, a critical factor in cross-border investment competitiveness. And my last panelist, stakeholder engagement and partnerships expert from Innovation for Development. Dennis is a specialist in stakeholder engagement and strategic partnerships with a diverse background spanning public policy, corporate responsibility, and community development. His work focuses on aligning institutions, private sector actors, and development partners to design collaborative investment platforms that create shared value. He's passionate about advancing economic justice, climate resilience, and inclusive governance through structured partnerships. His experience is multi-actor coordination and cross-sector engagement contributes to ensuring that investments initiatives are not only financially viable, but institutionally sustainable and inclusive. Dennis brings a system perspective to cross-border investment, focusing on trust, coordination, execution frameworks that convert some dialogue into long-term partnerships. This is going to be a heavy panel. So allow me to start you off with some opening. This is more of a curtain raiser. If you allow me, kindly allow me to continue standing on this podium as we proceed with the panel. So ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude our final panels for the day, we turn to a very critical question. How do we scale cross-border investments in East Africa's digital economy? as it is being projected, the title of our fireside chat. But scalability requires more than opportunity. It requires coordination, confidence, and competitiveness. This fireside dialogue explores how regional cooperation, founder readiness, and stakeholder alignment determines whether East Africa becomes globally competitive in digital investment hub. So allow me to dive in, and I'll begin with Andrew. So Andrew, allow me to throw you a question. And perhaps if you can use some 2 minutes to respond. Based on catalyzing UK-Tanzania trade and investment, and engaging with investors, institutional partners across the sector, how does strengthened regional cooperation enhance the scalability, risk profile, and overall attractiveness of digital economy investment in East Africa? Karibu.
For having me. I think there's three main things you talked about: scalability, risk, and attractiveness. So the scalability side, I think as individual countries, maybe to an outside investor, Tanzania or Kenya or Uganda or Rwanda by themselves is not attractive. But once you look at the EAC as one common market, becomes 300 million people, as Dr. Nkundo was saying earlier on. How many mobile smartphones does that population have now? So on that side, scaling is important because it brings in the bigger, more serious players who look at the region rather than individual countries. But that comes also with sort of harmonizing and unifying sort of regulatory and policy frameworks as well. Because then that can allow for e-payment systems to move cross borders more easily. This can allow for things like NIDA national identification. So if someone in Kenya is putting in a Tanzania's NIDA number, they'll get the same information wherever they are in the region, and data sharing as well. And then also, when it comes to sharing infrastructure, for example, if a company is setting up, let's say, hard physical infrastructure like fiber optics in one country, they can easily expand into other countries, and different customers can tap into that service from wherever they are. And also, when you harmonize, regulations and policies, it shows a level of sort of collaboration amongst the partner states in the EAC. And when an investor sees that, they see that the legal framework for digital investment in all countries in the EAC is the same. It shows a level of commitment, a level of collaboration, and a level of sort of foresight. So that in itself is very attractive to investors. And I think also on attractiveness, I think a big thing that outside investors look at, whether from the Nordics, whether from the UK or any part of the world, is how easy is it for me to invest, to bring my capital into this company, into this country. And more importantly, how easy it is for me to exit as well. I think a lot of investors, they're there to make a certain profit for a certain period of time, and they want the money to be safe, and they want to be able to access that money or move around their money as easily as possible. So I think that's a very, very key factor, is how is the sort of financial regulation, how is the banking system, how is the currency volatility in these countries, and how easy is it for me to invest in a specific company, whether it's through debt, through equity, or what type of financial products are available for my money to remain protected, and as importantly, how can I exit my investment when it's time? Let me stop there, Santi.
Thank you. Looking at the policy and market depth, how important is the market depth through regional integration under the EAC and the Africa Free Continental Trade Area in influencing investments decisions, especially by where you are right now, the UK and the international investors at large?
Yeah, no, it's very important. Like I said, I think the EAC is a population of over 300 million. AFSDA, you're tapping into at least 1.2 billion potential customers or service providers. So it's really, really important. I think also, like I said, some investors will have sort of the option to consider what type of investment to put in what type of market with a one single African market. You know, for example, let's say the services industry is very, very good and strong in Kenya. So as an investor, I'm looking to diversify my investment. I will look at that space. Let's say agriculture and production is very high, large industries here in Tanzania. I will invest in that space. So I think the depth of the market also guides the investor on where to put their money or what type of investment to put their money into. And again, also, you know, as I mentioned, when it comes to regulatory frameworks, you know, looking at, you know, what are the sort of politics or predictability of policy within the larger East Africa or AFCA market as well. So, for example, if policies, laws, and regulations are more predictable, they're more long term, as an investor, that gives me comfort. So I think that's why sometimes it's always important. And let me stick to what others were saying about. Let me talk about what I know. For example, sometimes when I speak to investors from the UK or other parts of the world or the US, sometimes I pitch the region as one of the fastest growing regions in Africa, rather than pitching Tanzania, even though my mandate is Tanzania. I talk about Tanzania sits in a region where it is one of the fastest growing regions globally, not just in Africa, but also Tanzania, stability-wise, you know, is one of the most stable countries in the region. So once you pitch a regional picture, macroeconomic, political stability, it just becomes an easier sell to investors, that they can pick and choose what type of investment to look at in what type of markets. So, you know, it takes time, but I think with that sort of unification and harmonization, selling Tanzania within the East Africa region becomes an easier sell, because once they set up in Tanzania, they have other markets to tap into quite easily surrounding Tanzania.
Time and again, we've been experiencing like a trade standoff within the East African countries, which gets us to some sort of like trade barriers. So from your engagement with UK investors, what are the most common questions or concerns they raise before committing capital into East African markets, or the digital economy rather?
Yeah, some of them I mentioned already. So, you know, I think the legal and regulatory, the business environment in general is very, very key. You know, how are laws and policies made? Are they predictable, ad hoc, and do they change regularly? So that sort of gives them some sort of, it doesn't give them sense if the regulatory framework is not predictable, it's not sort of long-term thinking. Again, capital, you know, how expensive that, you know, tax gets thrown in there as well. You know, what's the capital gains tax? What's the corporate income tax and things like that. So they always look at, you know, is my money going to grow if I put it in Tanzania? I think one thing that a few touched on, I think is really, really big is there enough skills or digitally literate population that can tap into my service, especially a digital service. So again, you know, the issue of how many people own smartphones, you know, how many people are using different products on their phones, is, you know, as opposed to just maybe calling and using the internet. You know, what's the diversity of the products and what people have access to and people use? So that gives an investor sort of that thought, like, okay, if I was to introduce this new service, the uptake of this service will be quick, will be fast, and it can grow quickly. So yeah, those are the few things.
All right. This will be my last question, Andrew. Now looking into the future, what must East Africans get right today to become a globally competitive investment hub?
Opinion. I think, of course, collaboration is important, and it's, you know, I mean, it goes without saying, but I think specialization, I think, is one thing. I think we as East Africans need to sit down and agree who is good at doing what, and let's focus on these few things that we're very good at and allow others to, you know, to be good at those other sectors. I think each individual country can be doing or promoting 10 sectors at the same time, because at some point, like you mentioned, there'll be competition. You know, and in a way and competition is good, it's healthy. It helps improve innovation, it helps improve creativity. But if we want to grow as a region and to attract different players, I think we need to agree that, you know, these few sectors as Tanzania will focus on and promote, and you, our neighbors, will support us in promoting these sectors to grow, and we will allow you to, to develop these sectors, and we will support you. So then now, as an investor, you know where to put your money depending on what type of investor you are. But I think if we keep on competing in every single thing, those non-tariff barriers or other, political standoffs will continue to happen.
Thank you, Andrew. With your deep insights from trade facilitation, I believe the audience has gained insights into what the future. We are going to look at the mindset and scale. So Gloria, from your work advising founders and growth stage businesses, what is the single biggest mindset gap preventing East African digital companies from scaling regionally?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity for me. One of the things that I would say is a mindset gap for most founders, and I think this is where I bring the fire. The problem is the founders, because most of the founders have everything. I think from the first panel to the second panel to the speakers, they are constantly speaking about structures and what has happened or what is happening with founders, especially the digital space. We have our ideas. The ideas belong to us, and it all surrounds everything that we are. And some of us can't even identify ourselves beyond our innovation, beyond our ideas. And I think he would agree with me, the investors would agree with me, they're not investing in you, they're investing in your idea. So if your idea does not have the correct structures that need to support it to grow, because when we talk about scaling your business, we are not talking about your business making profit or your business generating revenue. When we're talking about scaling your business beyond Tanzania, beyond Africa, we are scaling structures. We're not selling your business in terms of the product. We're selling the structures, because you can never be in all the places at the same time. We want you to run a business that is in Tanzania, but then it's also running in Kenya, it's also running in Rwanda without your presence. So my biggest problem has been to help entrepreneurs, founders in all different businesses to actually separate themselves from the businesses, so that the businesses can actually realize the potential and how growth looks like when it comes to investors or you're seeking for scaling your business.
Allow me to narrow into capital and investor relations. I'm not sure if it's an old adage here, but many startups, I'm sure if you ask some, they'll say once they want to scale or they want to move a little bit big, they'll say there is no capital. But investors say there is no investable companies. From your vintage point, what is the real disconnect from these two?
The biggest disconnect has been what founders believe as investable businesses and what investors see as investable businesses. Founders believe I've been operating this business for 5 years and I believe it has everything it needs. But again, panel 1, panel 2, every speaker has spoken. You don't have a board of directors. Every decision is coming from the same founder. They're the ones to say yes or no. The risk is very high for investors, because tomorrow, if you decide you're no longer interested in that idea is completely dead, and the money goes in that direction. So the disconnect is founders do not yet understand how to build proper structures within their businesses, having proper governance systems that can support the business to run independently, and it can be able to only change if the founders were to change their perspective when it comes to ensuring that their businesses have proper structures in place.
Structures and governance. That
Yes.
brings us to a crucial point. Even when capital and opportunity exists, coordination can determine success or failure. Please allow me to bring in Dennis. Dennis, I'll start you off with scaling cross-border investment. It's not just about policy or capital. It is about coordination and trust between institutions, investors, and partners across jurisdictions and jurisdictions. From my experience, what are the most critical stakeholder alignment mechanisms required to convert cross-border interest into actual investment deals?
Asante. Mimi nitauleta moto kwa sababu nitaongea Kiswahili zaidi. Lakini pia kwa sababu ya kitu nachoenda kukiongea, I will have to declare ya kwamba niko hapa kama mwakilishi wa makampuni tofauti tofauti. So it's very ironic, nitaenda kuongelea kuhusu trust. So in response to the question, failure inaanzia pale ambapo interest ina collide na coordination. Unakuta interest ipo, investors wako interested, innovators wako interested, serikali ziko interested, lakini the coordination aspect of it inavunjika. So as a result ni kwamba kila mtu anatoka hapo akiwa frustrated in their own right. The coordination aspect is very, very key. Ndio hapo sasa unakuta watu ambao wanaingia kustep in kufill your gap. Mmoja ataingia kutoa elimu na taaluma. Niko hapa nikiwakilisha Jenga Knowledge ambao tunajikita katika kutoa elimu kwa wawekezaji. Kwa watu kama kina Godfrey ambao wako Sweden, ambao hawajui namna ambavyo mambo yamekuwa yakibadilika Tanzania very quickly, ambao hajui stakeholders gani anapokuja na wazo lake hapa akutane nao. Vikao hivyo wavifanyaje? Ana perspective ya kukaa Sweden muda mrefu sana. Ana idea ambayo ni kubwa na sometimes hata ukiwa unaongea naye mwenyewe na overwhelm. How do you connect mtu kama yeye na CNS kwa mfano? Sambamba na e-summit, Elias alitoa tangazo kwa innovators ambao kesho atakuwepo hapa. As long as hilo tangazo yani muda tu hilo tangazo lilipowekwa kuwakaribisha, karibia watu 1186 wali sign up kama startups. Hiyo ni an overwhelming number. Sana. Inaonyesha watu wenye nia. Lakini ukishamwambia huyu mtu utahitaji kuregister BRELA, ufanye hiki, hiyo namba ilishuka haraka sana. So yes, by 60%. So tunaongelea jinsi ambavyo inapofika katika utekelezaji sasa ndipo hapo shida inapoanzia. Lakini naongelea trust from a perspective ya kwamba neno ambalo limetajwa tangu kwa Andrew, kwa dada Gloria na kwangu ni engagement. So we need to really leverage on engagement. Tuone umuhimu wa kuwa na majadiliano haya. Tuone umuhimu wa kuonyesha innovators wapya, kuonyesha wawekezaji wa nje ya kwamba we can sit and agree to make this environment that we have even more favorable for investment, cross-border investment. Ninakuja kwenye space ya private sector nikiwa nimetoka kuwa mwajiriwa full time na mradi wa bomba la mafuta ghafi Afrika Mashariki. Kwa hiyo I understand also from literally seeing how big companies are doing it, kuja kwenye kuangalia jinsi ambavyo na sisi au kwenye kutest ambavyo na sisi kama a growing market tunaweza tukakua, na mifano imetolewa mizuri sana tangu asubuhi mpaka sasa ya namna ambavyo kumekuwa na individual effort. How do we harness your individual effort into a more stronger, powerful, collaborative effort katika kuhakikisha tunavutia uwekezaji ndani na nje, na ikiwezekana tutoke nje. Yani tunapoongelea interregional sisi kwenda nje, na imewezekana. Tunayo mifano mizuri. Godfrey, my idea ni moja, lakini tumekuwa na wakina Nala, tumekuwa na wakina Ramani. You can take time to go visit these guys and see how powerful they are. Over 3 countries Nala nadhani, Ramani over 4 countries including nchi nje ya bara la Afrika. So it is possible. Thank you.
Last Last two questions to the three of you. Start off with Dennis, Gloria, and back to Andrew. So, what are the common breakdown points in multi-stakeholder investments projects, and how can structured engagement frameworks prevent those failures?
Asante. Mimi la kwangu moja, na nitawaachia ndugu zangu wachangie nao, ni exposure. We don't have exposure. Tuna watu ambao wana mawazo mazuri, but there is a lack of exposure. Na unfortunately huwezi ukawa exposed kwenye kila soko na kila taaluma na kila tasnia. Leo wamekuja wataalamu hapa wa all genres of work. Huwezi ukawa mtaalamu wa kila kitu. Nani Godfrey alitupa hiyo challenge earlier. Huwezi ukawa mtaalamu. Mimi mwenyewe nilistruggle kuwekeza kwenye soko la hisa. Lakini when we bring these institutional contributions, tukaziweka kuwa zinapatikana kwenye hub moja, call it incubation, call it what, na kutokea hapo utaalamu tofauti tofauti ukajazia na kufidia kwenye kumotivate hawa innovators kugrow, I think tutafika mbali. So component ya exposure, tunahitaji kuwa na exposure. Asante sana.
Karibu Gloria.
Oh, okay. Thought the mic died on me. Okay, so kwangu, I think I would talk about not working in silos, because what has happened is that there's me who's trying to work with the founder. There's Dennis looking at how we can be able to combine all the efforts, and there's the investor who's trying to find the right investment. Incubators, sandboxes, most of them currently are working in silos. Everybody is trying to find a solution in their own way, but the solutions lie among us. If we find more conversations like this ones, but then also when it comes to implementation, I'm not talking in a matter of including everybody in those sandboxes or whatever, but you can get ideas on how you can improve those, create collaborations among the different interventions that are happening, so that you can have the 360 approach towards getting the businesses and the innovations into a place where the investors can find the right environment for investment. I don't see that investors are not ready to invest. They're ready to invest, but they're not finding people in the places that they were promised to find them. We've heard about Stanbic, we have the BOT, we have different investment, different interventions that have come in to support businesses, but they're not giving the 360 approach in terms of getting that person ready to be able to be investable. So collaboration and stop working in silos. That would be my.
Whatever she said. No, no, seriously, I think just to piggyback off that, but I think, let me take a step back quickly. I think you as a founder, as a startup, I see a trend where people have an idea so they can raise money for it. They come up with an idea so they can raise money for it, vis-a-vis people trying to solve a problem. And I think sometimes those two things don't match. I see a lot of startups where they're like, oh, there's this fund by so-and-so, by this NGO, by this donor development partner. Let me try get some of that fund. But you haven't really worked on, okay, so but what problem are you trying to solve? You know, you getting funding is not the problem. You're trying to solve a problem for other Tanzanians so they don't have to deal with certain problems. So that's one thing. But let me take a step back to talk about this multi-stakeholder thing that you mentioned. I think what Gloria is touching on is we can improve on business development services. I think one, helping digital startups understand their market better, understand what are the norms, what are the cultures, what are the spending habits, what is the average income for for the market that you're trying to tap into. Who is already there in this space? Know who your competitors are or know who your collaborators are. Understand some legal frameworks or potential blockers in this idea or this business scaling. And sometimes these conversations need to be had with different type of people. You as a founder may not have all the answers. You may need to bring, potentially people who've done this before as your competitors, but also as your advisors, as your mentors. I think the point that was made about having a board of advisors is really, really important. They really help you shape your idea and improve it and fine tune it. And of course, I think on the government side of things, I think usually we look at government as someone sort of who regulates something or who stops us, it regulates. Basically, they either allow you to do it or they don't allow you to do it. They put a lot of controls. But I think bringing in government in the journey of developing your solution or your service or your product, so they understand what problem you're trying to solve from the beginning. So they don't show up once you're like 6 months, 1 year down the line, and then they're like, oh, what? Okay, we didn't know you were doing. Yeah, this is not allowed in Tanzania. Or, then it becomes a whole. So I think bringing in government for them to understand, which is it's easy to say now, but it's difficult to actually in reality. But I think finding those government partners like Dr. Nkundwe here, so they understand, they can guide, and they can tell you this is the government's direction, this is the government's plans for this type of area that you want to work in. So this is how the government can throw in support, or at least not be a blocker in the future. So I think that multi-stakeholder is a very important term. Deal with people outside of your comfort zone, outside of your typical sector that you think these are the people that work in my sector.
Thank you. My very last question to the three of you. Now, how can platform like this move beyond dialogue? Just some people would say these are just talk shops. So how can we move beyond dialogue and become long-term partnerships, vehicles for cross-border digital investment?
Is that me?
Yeah. Please start us with.
No, yeah, that's talk shops are okay sometimes because it opens people's thinking and exposure as well. So they're not all bad. But I think, a platform like this, I think there's a B2B, I think contacts will be made. I think, sometimes you need 1 or 2 projects to really succeed, to be an example, to be a case study for others to follow. I think, for a good example, I think is South Korea. South Korea, decades ago, the government supported a few companies, but those companies came to be Samsung, they came to be Kia, they hired people and they really grew the economy because they were really supported and, used as sort of the pioneers or examples. So I think a platform like this can identify really key digital products or solutions or services that are showing good potential and really throw some support around them, and for them to sort of carry the Tanzanian flag across borders and bring in other people with them, show them this is how you can succeed. I think my friend here mentioned a few of the companies already. We'd love to see Wakina Ramani, Wakina Nala being invited and give testimony, because we can talk all day about how to deal with things, but they're the ones that are actually doing things. So bring them, let them answer some questions, let them show you where they failed, where they had to pivot, because Nala didn't, what the Nala we see now isn't how the Nala started. So, I think cases like that, showing people examples and how to really go about it is important.
Thank you.
I will start from where he left off. Examples, very important for us to see. I think we don't have a showcase of businesses and digital businesses that are successful. We don't have enough show of that. Jenga does a podcast. Sorry, I'm going to plug her. She has a podcast that speaks to founders about what they've done through the journeys of entrepreneurship and business altogether. We need more of those. The more we hear, the more we can be able to replicate, the more younger people can be able to use those as platforms. Currently, I would say, I wouldn't say even we have 1% of Tanzanian stories being told. So nobody has anywhere to look in order for them to understand that this is where it starts from. Somebody to understand that sometimes when an investor comes in, your idea can shift from what it was to something completely different. So you want to be able to tell more of these stories. And the younger generation has this opportunity. Today we have podcasts of all kinds of topics. Let's have something that speaks to the digital entrepreneurs and how do we bring them on board to tell their stories and how transformation and investment change their businesses to what they are today. We have the Nala and the other one use those as starting points, but then I'm sure we have more businesses out here that can tell their stories that will be able to inspire the next and best entrepreneurs from this platform.
Thank you.
Asante. Mimi kwa kifupi ningeomba nitaje mfano ambao uko pia humu ndani. Innovation for Development wana program yao ya kutrain wafanyakazi na institutions kwenye matumizi ya AI. Kwa hiyo tafadhali hakikisha ya kwamba unafahamu hiyo program wanayoifanya. Tuanzie hapo. Kwa sababu wote tunatumia AI. Sasa hivi wote hapa naweza kusema tunatumia AI. As long as una kifaa chochote cha mawasiliano kinachounganisha wewe kwenye mtandao, una namna ya AI unayoitumia. Ni vizuri tukajifunza namna nzuri na matumizi mazuri ya hivi vifaa na hii teknolojia. Hatua ya pili, tena dakika chache zilizopita mimi na mwenyekiti wangu tulikuwa tuna mjadala wa jinsi ambavyo bado Watanzania tunaamkia kufanya vitu from an informed perspective. Kwa hiyo tuna haja ya kutafuta taarifa. It's high time tuyatafute haya makampuni. Yaani hivi tulivyo humu, search, ametajwa Jenga Knowledge, ametajwa I4D. Do you know kiasi gani unafahamu kuhusu I4D? Imetajwa Stanbic, unafahamu kiasi gani kuhusu Stanbic? Grant Thornton, it's a difficult one. I need AI. Wanafanya nini kwa kiasi gani? Na hii ni challenge ambayo sisi ambao ndio wasomi sasa tukisogeza kwa ndugu zetu wengine na wengine wadogo zetu, ndugu zetu, tutajenga jamii ya watu ambao wanafanya maamuzi wakiwa wana taarifa. Lakini zaidi sana itawa inspire hao wadogo zetu, wengi na waita wadogo, lakini hata kaka zetu, kwa sababu Godfrey sio mdogo, hao ambao wanakuja na mawazo bunifu kuyaboresha ili kutarget jamii ambayo au kutarget audience ambayo inaweza ikawasogeza kwenda mbele na sio kuwakatisha tamaa. Namna gani anaweza akapackage wazo lake, namna gani anaweza akapackage product yake akaisogeza mbele na ikapata umaarufu. Kwa sababu itakapokuwa vizuri, product tu yenyewe itatosha kujenga imani ya yule anayempelekea. Na ikijenga imani ya yule anayempelekea, hakuna kitakachomzuia yeye kwenda hatua inayofuata. Ukisoma historia ya Ramani, ukisoma historia ya Nara, kuna vikwazo walivipitia, lakini walifika kwa watu ambao walipoiona product yao wakasema, this is a good product, I'm ready to invest. So investors wapo, narudia tena. Nia ipo kwa wawekezaji. Umeona the likes ya mabenki wameongea hapa, the likes ya wakina Burak wameongea hapa, ambao wana uwezo wa muda mrefu wa kuwekeza. Kwa hiyo interest ipo, ila ni coordination part hapo ndio ambayo ina shida. Na kufacilitate coordination, nenda na product ambayo ni nzuri. Nenda ukiwa umefanya your research. Asiamke tu kijana na wazo lake akaenda akali pitch pasipo hata kuwa na pitch deck. Kwa hiyo mimi niishie hapo. Asante.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very big round of applause to my distinguished panel. Thank you guys. It was a pleasure moderating this session. Thank you.
Please join the picture. And we appreciate your very engaging, very challenging questions. I think some you pulled out of the box, but the panel was also, as introduced, very distinguished, very knowledgeable, and we appreciate them. Sindio jamani, they've been amazing, Okay, so as you take your seats, we've had a good day from the morning. We continue to apologize for the tardy start, for the late start, but I think overall we can't deny that our hosts selected the very best to sit with us from the guest of honor. And so, Madam Chair, without taking your thunder, without taking your fire, may I please welcome you for your remarks, and please encourage everyone to continue to stay. It's a very strange time when you have both the month of Ramadan and We're also fasting as Christians. Energies can go really low. Huh? All right. So I'm not telling you to take it to make it short, but I'm asking people to stay a little bit more. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam Chair, Lulu.
Thank you, Taji. I think we have to start by giving ourselves a very big round of applause. I think the round of applause is not only reserved for the panelists or the guests, invited guests. I think it's for all of us. First of all, for being here, for staying, for engaging. I, for one, have learned quite a lot. I do think that I'll start from where Taji left off. Please stay till the end. Because, and I'm not just saying this, I'm not saying this because I want you to stay. I'm saying this because I know what's to come. Please stay. I feel like I've been in this sector ecosystem for a very long time, but I learn something every day, every minute. I've already learned quite a lot. So I'll promise you two things while I'm standing here. The first one is that I will make sure that there will be no protocols because all protocols have been observed. So I will stand on all the protocols that have already been observed. The second thing is I will not stand between you and your break before you come back here. And I make a promise that it will be 5 minutes, the closing that I'm going to do right now. So as we conclude day one of the East Africa Nordic Innovation, Trade and Investment Summit 2026, allow me to briefly reflect on what today has achieved and what it sets in motion. Today's conversation have delivered a clear and consistent message. The digital economy is not an abstract ambition. It is a practical catalyst for investment, competitiveness, and regional growth. Across our panels, we have seen strong alignment between policy, direction, and private capital, digital systems, and investor confidence, regional cooperation, and market scalability. We have heard how regulatory efficiency strengthens credibility, how structured finance accelerates industrial growth, and how cross-border partnerships expand opportunity. Importantly, today has demonstrated that Tanzania, within the broader East African region, is positioning itself as a serious, disciplined, and credible destination for long-term responsible investment. This is not about aspiration. It is about execution. On behalf of the organizing committee, all of us here that have spent hours, days, weeks, actually, we started this last year, sometime last year. I extend our sincere appreciation to our guest of honor for officially opening the summit and for setting a clear strategic tone for our discussions. We thank the Ministry of Planning and Investment, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the ICT Commission, the PPP Center, the Tanzania Investment and Special Economic Zones Authority, or TISEZA, as is well known, for their leadership and institutional collaboration. We are equally grateful to our Nordic, European Union, and UK partners whose presence reinforces the strength and international cooperation and advancing sustainable investment through digital transformation. To our financial institutions, private sector, leaders, moderators, and panelists, thank you for your clarity, discipline, and commitment to constructive dialogue and to our host, Innovation for Development. Thank you for convening a platform that moves beyond discussion to structured opportunities. If day one has focused on frameworks, digital systems, capital mobilization, and cross-border investment, day two will focus on conversion, from dialogue to pipeline, from innovation to export readiness, from ambition to measurable enterprise growth. Tomorrow's session will center on youth-led and agro-industrial enterprises, structured capital pathways, and practical investment readiness or engagement. In other words, we move from context to execution. Distinguished guests, thank you for your active participation, your discipline with time, and your seriousness in engaging these critical issues. With that, it is my honor to formally close day one of the East Africa Nordic Innovation, Trade and Investment Summit 2026. We wish you a productive networking engagement this afternoon, and we look forward to welcoming you back tomorrow for day two. Thank you very much. I hope I kept my promise.
I hope nyote mnazungumza Kiswahili. So kesho tutafocus zaidi kwenye masuala ya ubunifu katika agriculture na tutafocus zaidi au tutajikita zaidi kwenye eneo la export. Hawa wenzetu tayari wa Nordic wameshawekeza. You have company kama Yala International iko kwenye mbolea, unaongelea Maersk, those are Danish. Kuna so many ventures ambazo wameshakuja kwenye this side, but we also want to go to their side. Hatuwezi kupeleka teknolojia kule kwa sababu alikuacha kakuacha, lakini Mayaida anasema wametukimbiza. Lakini hawa watu huwezi ukalima matikiti maji kwenye barafu, wala uwezi yani wanategemea vyakula kutoka this side. Kwa hiyo siku ya kesho tutakuwa na vijana ambao tayari ni exporters watashare experience, lakini wewe ambaye unatamani pia kujifunza namna gani unaweza kuingia katika value addition ya mazao ya kilimo, ambapo unaweza ukaexport pia kwenda kwenye soko la Nordic, nikimaanisha Norway, Denmark, Finland, Sweden, lakini pia EU kwa ujumla. Kesho ndo siku ambayo tutadiscuss hayo maswala. Labda unafanya korosho, unafanya kahawa, unafanya mpaka mchicha, mpaka mchele, yani mchicha, kwa sababu kuna Watanzania wengi ambao wanaishi those countries na wanatamani wakale dagaa wa Kigoma, wanatamani, but ili ingize chakula katika soko lao there are ABC ambazo unatakiwa uzifahamu. Kwa siku ya kesho we'll focus more on export, na part of what we do actually at I4D, nadhani mmeona hapo kwenye logo, Agri Export Hub. It's one of our hub ambayo ipo Kigamboni, ambayo tunawasaidia watu ambao wanataka kuingia katika masuala mazima ya export. Are we good? Are we following? Yeah, so kesho tutafocus sana. It will be maybe only one panel. Tutakuwa na panel moja, lakini it will be more, we'll have a colleague from the authority TanTrade wataongelea, lakini pia other tutakuwa na exporters, kwa sababu we want to bring in people ambao sio wanatupa story, ambao actually they are preaching what they are doing. So tutakuwa na wazee wetu ambao tayari ni exporters wa share na sisi experiences throughout their journey, na technically hatutakuwa na mgeni rasmi ili protocol ziwe chache tuweze kunetwork. Hivi mimi napelekaje hiki na ingiaje huku, AOB zinakuaje. Kwa kesho tuna focus more kwenye kunetwork. Mkiniruhusu mimi ndo nitakuwa mgeni rasmi, lakini otherwise asanteni sana kwa kuja. I really appreciate, na watakia mchana mwema na bora. Najua tuna session na youth mchana huu kwa ajili ya ukiwiwa unaweza ukabaki. Youth wale innovators specifically Stanbic they will share how do you go to the incubator program, lakini pia watu wa wizarani kuna ile bilioni 5 tunaichukuaje kama startup ile kusupport startups so they will be able to share. Lakini pia mimi nadhani pia nitashare maybe few things from our end I4D specific kwenye masuala ya innovators, and we would like more people to network. Yani usitoke tu hapa na business card, toka umejua mtu anafanya nini. This is how you build relationship. Jamani, Lulu, she's one of my mentor. Moja ya kitu aliniambia, it's wewe Eli una shida ya hela, wewe una shida tu ya network, na ndio maana sasa hivi nacheza golf. Just to keep it as a footnote. Lakini niwahamasisha jamani, relationship inatengenezwa, so be intentional. As unaondoka sasa hivi, get to know one another. Tuna brother George pale from TRA, wazee wa Idras yoye. So tuna George pale, get to know like, okay, mimi ni startup lakini na kwama huu mfumo wenu sasa hivi umelinki mpaka M-Pesa yangu, I don't know what to do. Au sometime napata hela ya mteja alafu nanunua wigi sababu ni la kwangu na ni hela ni yangu, lakini TRA mnaniambia sikulipa code na vitu kama. So you network. So after this session kuna kahawa pale nje kama nilivyokuambia, just network, get to know one another. Lakini pia ukiwiwa hiyo session ya mchana, it won't be so long. Stanbic watatu facilitate. Tulimsikia Kai anaongelea Sustainable Academy which they are our partner, so she will double tap that ili muelewe hiyo academy inafanya nini, how to access it, how to use it. Lakini pia hizo fursa nyingine ambazo zipo za funding. Lakini pia cha muhimu zaidi kuliko yote, if you live here, hakikisha ume exchange contact, na sio tu contact, book next appointment after this chit chat that you will have in this summit. Otherwise, because I'm a pastor as well, I'll ask to pray for you. Father, thank you for this amazing opportunity that we gathered today. Baba, mlinde kila mmoja ambaye amekuja katika sesheni hii, muhifadhi, mtunze, mahitaji yake yakafikiwe katikati yetu. Kama kuna mgonjwa akapokee uponyaji, na ombea biashara hizi zote Baba zikaweze kufanikiwa, na ili tukaweze kuijenga Tanzania yetu, tukaweze kuwa baraka katika nchi yetu, lakini pia tukaweze kuimpact maisha ya wale watu ambao wametuzunguka. Ninaomba haya nikiamini kuwa session nyingine zote utaendelea kutusaidia, na kwa msaada wako tutaendelea kutenda yaliyo makuu. Nimeomba nikiamini, na wote tuseme thank you so much. Hai.